back to Getting to the Top, where we interview transformational leaders about their leadership journey. And today I have the honor of introducing you to Nika Chiazor. She is a 20-year industry veteran with a proven track record of achieving measurable and meaningful results by leading high-performance teams, managing customer relationships, driving strategic growth, and promoting inclusion within the workplace. She joined Cox in 2017 as the VP of Public and Government Affairs for Virginia and currently serves as the Market VP for Hampton Roads. Her responsibilities include leading a team of over 1,300, I love this, heartbeats, to deliver exceptional service to more than 300,000 customers. She began her career as a robotics programmer, love girls in STEM, and has since gained extensive leadership experience and industry knowledge through various roles, including as Verizon's VP of Public Policy and Government Affairs, where she advocated on network reliability, public safety, and homeland security policy matters. She's actively involved in various civic and business organizations, including Hampton Roads Military and Federal Facilities Assistance. She's received numerous awards and recognitions throughout her career, as you can imagine. She was named the 2022 Humanitarian of the Year by the Virginia Center for Inclusive Communities. She holds a bachelor degree of science and computer science from Concordia University in Montreal, and a Master of Science degree in Telecommunications Management from the University of Maryland Global Campus. She is also an alumnus of Harvard Business School, and she enjoys volunteering, as if there were time, at Dress for Success, and spending quality time with her husband and their two daughters, the absolute apples of her eye, Didi and Nuli. Welcome, Nika.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Raquel. This is so exciting. I love your voice. First of all, let me just say that. I love if there are like Oscars for voices, I think you should get a prize. Are there
Well, if
podcasts?
anybody wants any voiceover work, I'm here.
Are there podcast Oscars? Are there like Oscars for podcasts? Can we just submit your name already?
I like it because you know what? If there were Oscars for podcasts, I've not even heard about it. That's to tell you how far I am from potentially getting one. But that's
We'll
all
start one.
right.
We'll
That's all
start.
right. We are working up our way to something good. But it's
Yeah.
so great. I love this. Girls in STEM, you're doing all of these incredible things and being recognized for your work, supporting 300,000 customers. That has to be a lot of pressure. But I want to find out, so how did this all start? Where did you, when you were going to school, when you were 5 or 6 and somebody said, Nika, what do you want to be when you grow up? What did you used to say?
Oh my. It changed every week actually.
That's my favorite kind of child. Where it's like, listen,
It
the adventure has
changed.
begun.
Yes, it changed every week. I remember at one point I wanted to be a newscaster.
Oh, I
At
think you'd have been great
another
at that.
point, I wanted to be a film producer. At another point, I wanted to be a chemist. And I
Mm,
stuck with chemist for a long time. Um,
really?
yeah, I
What
really,
attracted you to chemistry?
the colors. I am a color freak. I love
Mm.
colors. And so by this time I was in secondary school. I did secondary school in Nigeria. And in chemistry, you would mix these different compounds. And I was just fascinated by how you would mix one element with another element, and it would just produce something really fantastic. So I
You know,
wanted to
I
be.
liked colors too, but I just did art. I was like, let's just keep it simple.
Well, art was simple for you, but I couldn't draw. I didn't know how to draw. So I almost failed my art class. Like, yes, I almost failed my art class. That is possible.
Oh my goodness.
Chemistry, yeah, I got chemistry. Art, not so much.
Oh my gosh. And you know, we're almost polar opposites, right? Because I just chemistry and physics were the worst. Oh my gosh. And I actually found myself, because I'm in climate action now, having to look up different like chemical formulas for like methanol and methane, and I was just like, oh wow, I wish I knew more about this. So tell me, so then you decided to stick with chemistry. So at what point did you transition from chemistry into technology?
So it was interesting because I went to an all-girls secondary school in Nigeria.
Best.
And I mean, that is one of the best experiences I've had in my life. And I remember this class, our math teacher invited us to class, and we were about maybe 80 girls, right? He invited us to class and he said, girls, I have something to show you. And we walk into class and there's this computer. And this was the 80s. It was a computer, it was a flashing screen. So we all rushed to go to the computer. And he's like, no, 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 no. You cannot touch it. Don't touch it. And I'm like, what? Why can't we touch it? Why not? And he was so particular about us not touching it, but we could admire it from afar. And it's as I got older that I realized, oh, I don't think Mr. Ilori, that's the teacher's name, maybe he didn't know how to use it. But then as a kid, so I was intrigued. And I remember saying, I want to learn more about that and how
Yeah.
it works. And so that summer, I remember telling my parents about my experience. And I told them I want to learn. And my mother had done key punching when she was younger. And she said, that was a computer you saw for sure. And over the summer holiday, let me put you in a class. So she put me in a typing class over computers, and I was hooked. And after that, I switched. I said, no, now I want to study computer science. My father wanted me to be a doctor because I was good in the sciences.
Yes, of
I was
course.
really good in chemistry and physics and math.
As
But
all good Nigerian parents, you
as
want
all
you
good
want a
Nigerian,
doctor.
so you know us, right? You're either a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer. So I remember when I said computer science, he's like,
I don't
what are
know.
you
We don't know
gonna
where
do?
that's going yet.
Right? He's like, what are you gonna do with that? And I told him, I said, I can always be a doctor, but computer science, now that's something different. So he was like, okay, fine.
Oh, that's lovely.
I said, it's either that or chemistry. He's like, absolutely not a chemist. If you're going to be a chemist, you may as well be a pharmacist. I'm like, I'm not pushing drugs. So we settled on computer science, and that's how I got in.
Wow,
Yeah.
wow. You know, it's funny. I went to my high school just this past weekend with some girlfriends from high school, and it was just so many memories. And you know, we had a similar sort of point in time where you had to choose two things, right? And we had either typing or computer science. And I was like, well, I'll obviously have a secretary, so let me take computer science. And that's how I ended up taking computer science. And you know, it's so funny. Like we knew so little about where this was going then, but it was just like, oh my God, it's intriguing, it's interesting. You never know, and you kind of just
Right.
follow that path.
Right. Right. You just follow, you just trust.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah.
you
And
kind of
I
had a
just
sense that it was something exciting.
something exciting. Yes.
Yeah.
I remember learning how to type. Back then we were taught typing in shorthand, so that was mandatory for girls, right? Fast forward to today, no one even talks about shorthand anymore.
Yeah.
But I remember learning Word Perfect on the computer.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Oh, listen to me. Word perfect. I love it. Word perfect. Listen, and still to this day, and I've headed up Microsoft for Trinidad and Tobago. And let me tell you,
Wow.
Microsoft Word, as wonderful as it is, still could not begin to light a candle to Word Perfect. Word
Yes,
Perfect was absolutely perfect.
it was perfect.
Yeah.
It was perfect. And then I remember graduating from that, I said, okay, I definitely want to learn how to type and I want to learn Word Perfect before I start my computer science program because
Okay.
I was nervous I didn't know what to expect in computer science, but I just knew I wanted to learn how to type and type really fast.
Okay.
Right? And so WordPerfect really helped ease my comfort with the computer
Yeah.
before starting the program. Getting to school, I'm like, oh, wait, this is computer science? It was my first set of classes, it was all about logic and reasoning um, and machine learning and very little about typing. I was like, oh, okay.
And those are such good disciplines, right? You know, how does this logic model work and how does this think and how does it how does it manipulate data and, all these great things that you need to know.
That you need to know, right? And
Yeah.
also, we learned a lot about the user experience, right?
Mm.
So, because at the end of
Oh, I
the
feel like a
day,
lot of new users and computer scientists don't learn about that till very late.
yes,
So
yes.
you guys were ahead of the curve.
Oh, we're ahead. Concordia University, God bless Concordia University in Montreal. It's a very business-oriented school. And so I
Yeah.
think that was one of the benefits of doing computer science there because right off the bat, we were exposed to thinking about customers, thinking about the end user. And
Yeah.
did computer science at a very exciting time. Like this was the 90s, Windows 95 had just come out. Right? It was like I'll never forget that. Like I remember like the little windows swirl in red,
Yeah.
blue, and yellow, the colors, right? AOL, You've Got Mail was
Oh
around.
my gosh,
There was
the movie, like,
a movie, right, with Megan Ryan and Tom Hanks. As a computer science student, I had my own computer with the tower and the floppy drive. So I was, in it to win it. It was just it was just a great time. It was just a great time. But just learning about the user experience, I remember several of our professors would say, okay, how do you think the user would think about, what you're designing? How do you think the user is going to experience the end result of what you're programming or designing? It was pretty interesting stuff.
I have to ask, and this is not a part of the journey, but what was the move like from Nigeria to Montreal?
Oh, it was shocking. So I was actually born in St. John's, Canada, in Newfoundland, Canada.
Ah.
At the time, we were the only Black African family in St. John's. I know this for sure. So I know.
The newspaper came up and said, hello, one African family.
My mom actually wrote, she tells me this story that she wrote, you know how you post like obituaries? She did a birth announcement for me in the newspaper. And she said my dad always teases her like, who do you think is not gonna know that you had a child? Like, what were you thinking? So we moved to Montreal, and then when I was about 9, we moved to Nigeria. And
Okay.
so coming back to Montreal to go to college, it was an eye opener for me because now I had left uh, a majority African Black society, right? I
Yeah.
had gone from growing up in a neighborhood where I was the only Black kid to fast forward going to a neighborhood where my name is not strange, my hairstyles are not weird. Back then, braids, twists were considered people. I would go to class with my twists, and people would be like, "What do you have on your hair?" It's not like today. No, I
Right.
want you to think about rewind
Yeah.
40 years ago. It is not
Yeah.
like today, right? So I
Yeah.
went from that to Nigeria, where everyone is, hey, it's predominantly Black, it's all great. To
Yeah. And
have
the
to
food
go
is
back,
incredible.
food is incredible. I'm like,
I literally say to friends, I cannot go back to Nigeria. Like I have to be like 20 pounds under goal and then unleash me on Nigerian food.
that's how you have to do it. You have to go malnourished and come back to home.
Yes, roll back.
You know?
There were some Nigerian friends of mine in Egypt, not in Egypt, sorry, in Dubai. And there was
Okay.
this Nigerian restaurant. And I said, do not tell me where it is till the day before we leave, because I'm not permitted to go but once. And so if you tell me before, I will find myself there at some of the night. So the day before we leave, so they messaged me like midday the day before I left. You can go and the address.
No, no, no. When you come to Hampton Roads, we're taking you to a Nigerian restaurant. Day one. Day one. I'm
Oh.
putting that in the universe. Day one.
I'm gonna wear my stretchy pants.
That's fine. I'll get you a boo. I'll get you a boo-boo. You'll be fine. You will be totally fine. But yeah,
Wonderful. So then culturally, you're just having this cultural shift, but then you come back and it's still different, but it's a little bit better, a little
it's different, but
progressed a
it's
little bit.
progressed. Yeah, there at this point now, when I was back to study computer science in the 90s, there was more of a francophone community. an African Francophone community in
Nice.
Montreal, right?
Beautiful.
There were more people like from Cote d'Ivoire, from Senegal, from Guinea, from Gambia, and then also from Dominican Republic, from Haiti. So there was this just sense of diversity in the
Yes.
city that was rather refreshing. And Concordia itself as a school was a very inclusive school. It was known actually for its diversity and for its robust international students program. So it was definitely great. It was just a really
Yeah.
great experience. Yeah.
All right. So you graduate from Concordia now, and you have to decide on what's next. So what do you decide to do?
So I'm graduating, like before I graduate, I get this job with a robotics company, right? And
Really? How did you
yeah,
swing that?
so at the time, this was in the paper. Well, now I'm getting to the dot-com boom. I graduated in 96, but 95 with Windows 95. I'm telling you, a lot happened that year, right? So a lot of companies were looking for people who were Windows programmers.
Mm-hmm.
They were looking for people who were computer science, computer engineering majors. And even though I hadn't graduated from college, I was looking for an internship. And I remember going to this company, Optimal, they had advertised in the paper. They were looking to hire software developers. And I said, I haven't graduated and I don't have experience, but I'd love to intern with you,
Yeah.
Raquel. They were like, no, 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 we don't want you as an intern. You're coming
Wow.
to work for us, period. You can do full time, you
Wow.
can do part time, you can do whatever it is you can do. And so they started me out in the audio visual department. And
Nice.
my job, it was exciting, was Optimal was building self-checkout systems. So our client then was Kroger. And
Ah,
we were building the first self-checkout system. So when you go to like Target or Kroger and
mhm.
you scan the,
No, back then?
yes, yes, it was called,
Wow.
yep, the software was called UScan Express. And my job was to create the audio visual experience for customers. So when you go in and you think about how you experience technology today, when you go into a self-checkout system, you press the button for bananas. Well, if
Hmm.
you really think about it, you're touching a flat screen.
Yeah.
We're presenting to you a series of images that gives you the experience of pressing a button, but you're not
Right.
really pressing a button. That was my job, was to create that experience for the end user visually, and then also create the sound. So if you touch a button, you expect to hear a click, right? Or
Yeah. Or
please put
feel
your item,
something.
or feel
Yeah.
something, or please
Right.
put your item in the bag, right? The
Yeah.
recording that
Oh,
goes,
you even sound like the voice.
that
Is
was
it
part of my
you?
job. Go into the studio, do the voice. Um,
Really? Oh,
yeah.
fantastic.
And the company was interested in me partly because at the time there was a radio show on campus called Black Like Me that me and one of my buddy would do twice a week. And so they said, "Hey, you have radio experience. You can
You
do these
can do
recordings
it.
for us."
Yeah.
And they even had me doing recordings in Spanish. I'm like, I'm not Spanish. They're like, don't worry about
It's
it.
all right. You look kind of Dominican.
Right. So I was doing that, and then I remember reading in the papers about companies that were coming from the States. And one of the dreams I'd always had was to work or live in the States, in
Mhm.
DC in particular.
Wow.
Like from the time I was maybe 14, I had always dreamed of being close to Capitol Hill. I don't know why. Like I
You just
just was
knew.
so fascinated by it. And so there were several positions that were open. There was a consulting firm that was hiring. And I remember applying and going through the process. And I got hired, and they gave me an opportunity to either start in New York or in DC. And of course, I picked DC, and that was
Of
it. I
course.
picked the States. Yeah.
So is the lesson from this then that the especially young people who are starting out on their journeys today, they should look at what are the growing industries now and figure out what is the opportunity for you to get involved. So should they be looking at things like AI and how you can, because that is where the demand is, right? And you can get some incredible experiences, exposure, jobs, opportunities to grow if you are on the cusp of what's happening.
Yes. There's something we
Okay.
used to say in Montreal all the time. Skate to where the puck is going, right?
I love it.
The puck it has already moved to artificial intelligence. So
Mhm.
I encourage young people, I encourage all people to,
Yeah.
this is not no longer an age thing. The
Yeah.
puck is moving towards artificial intelligence. Let's start to skate there, right?
Yeah.
And look at the companies that are either creating the language that is informing AI or creating applications that leverage AI. The AI ecosystem is so huge that there's something for everyone.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I say the same thing about climate action, huh? So I think the AI climate action nexus listen,
Yes.
plenty going on there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So now you get this amazing opportunity. How do you like that job? You can tell us the truth. It's okay.
Yes. So I get this amazing opportunity to come to the States.
And to
And
be in
first,
DC where you've dreamed of since you were 14.
yes. And woo, I love DC. I start out as a consultant working on a billing system for MCI.
Wow.
I, I
That is crazy out the
it's
gate.
crazy. It's crazy. The company was called IMI Consulting, and there were four of us that they hired. I came from Canada. The other three were US based. And when I look back at that time, uh, it was almost outer worldly, right?
Yeah.
Because one, there was a lot of trust. As young as I was at that time, maybe I was about 23. So there was a lot of trust in terms of, hey, we're trusting the knowledge and the experience you have. And remember, for me, I'm like, I only have 1.5 years experience, but it was a new space. So it was a lot of um, long hours, right? A lot of hard work. It was not sexy. No, working in billing is not sexy work. But it was really a good grounding for me to understand, how an American business actually thinks in terms of billing. Because remember, I'm coming from Canada. So it
Right.
was a really good way for me to orient myself in the United States, right? And understand. And also, I'm in DC now. So it was great. It was around the time of the Monica Lewinsky scandal. It was all the things. Yes, it was. And I remember this because this is what impressed me with the company I was working with. The leadership at the time, shortly after the scandal broke, we were working at MCI at Pentagon City. And the Linda Tripp, Monica Lewinsky conversation happened at the Ritz-Carlton in Pentagon City. So the leaders of the company convened a meeting for us to talk
Wow.
to us, the new kids on the block, to say, hey, we want you to know that we value what you're doing. We don't want you to be in any uncomfortable position or situation. If you ever feel uncomfortable on this account or any account, let us know. And I remember sitting there like, is there something we should know? Not knowing what was
What
going
all of the
on.
context of what was going on.
Right, right. And so when I think about those times, I say to myself, that's great leadership. And
Yeah.
so when that company later on said to me, hey, we think we really want you on another account, I left the MCI account and went to Bell Atlantic, which had
Wow.
another billing system challenge that they moved me to. For me, it was a no-brainer because I felt like these folks were looking out for me.
Yeah.
I'm this kid that has come from Canada. I don't know much about what's going on, but the leaders took the time to come in and say, these are our values. Um,
Yeah. But I must say though, there had to be something really extraordinary about you that
mm,
one, first you get this robotics, this robotics opportunity, and they're like, listen, I want an internship, and they're like, no, what you want is a job, you want to work here, we want you to work here. And then you get this other amazing opportunity. What was it about how you showed up or what you said or how you presented yourself that just made such a great impression?
You know, well, one, I like to believe it's faith, right? I prayed a lot for what was manifested. Two, I was very transparent with the people who gave me the opportunity. I was definitely
Mm,
grateful. At the
yeah.
time that I left Montreal to come to the States, Montreal was thinking about separating from Canada. Again, this was the crazy end of the 90s. So a lot of companies were folding and moving to Toronto.
Yeah.
If it were today, we would call it Quexit. It
Yeah.
was like Brexit.
Quexit.
Yeah, it was like Brexit. It's just Quebec
Yeah.
didn't get the votes, right? But
Mm,
I had my younger brother was in Montreal at the time, still going to college. Nigeria's economy was tanking. And so for me, the money that I was earning, the income I was earning at Optimal Robotics, and now, with my consulting firm that I was working at in the US, I was using that to help subsidize my brother's education because my parents had paid for my education.
yeah.
So I had shared that with my leaders so that they knew, hey, this job is really important to me.
Important to
Like,
me.
so working long hours, I'm like, I'm willing to stay up 23, 24 hours,
I live here
right?
now.
What do you all want? What do you need me to do that's legal and ethical? I'm willing to do that. And I think they saw that I
Yeah.
wasn't just saying that, but that I really meant it.
Yeah.
And then I was also sure too to share with them things that I had observed at the client site. Because even though I was in computer science, I was always the social one in class. I was
Okay.
always the gal, right?
Okay.
I was the one talking to the teachers or the people getting the information. So I brought the same sensibility to work to share with like my account manager, hey, here's some observations about what's happening with the client. Maybe we can do X for them, or maybe we can simplify the billing system this way. And so I think those are some of the things the leaders saw that said, oh, we can really use this talent here on this account. And then subsequently, they actually came to me and said, why don't we actually work on giving you a green card? Which I thought was amazing. Yeah.
Amazing. I mean,
Yes.
people pray for that, wait for that, dream for that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And so it was this authentic showing up, willing, excited, engaged, but very transparent about the situation you were in, willing to roll up your sleeves, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and doors are just opening and you are going through and doing amazing things and continuing to rise. So how does the next opportunity find you?
So the next opportunity, it was interesting because I was expressing an interest in going to AOL, right? I had
Mm.
told the consulting firm that I really want to go to AOL. I really want to go back to my roots of being at the cutting edge of technology.
Yeah.
And I remember the account executive saying, I hear you, but the telecom industry is a very stable industry, right? AOL is sexy. This is stable. Don't leave me your chops with stable. So I was like, okay, let me keep doing the boring stuff. And so fast forward, I had done a couple of projects. Um, and my last, I had worked on the billing project. I'd done Lotus Notes administration. I'd done a number of things.
Ooh, oh,
Girl,
you're
I'm
just
going
saying
way
stuff
back.
you know I like. Oh,
I'm going way
Lotus, no.
back.
Oh,
Lotus Notes, same time. And not that I was great at it, but I
oh,
tried.
oh,
I
I was
tried. That was,
magnificent at Lotus Notes. And I
oh
also
my,
believe better than Excel. Better than
yes,
Excel. Yeah.
yes,
But
yes.
not as if we're doing comparison, Lotus Notes and Excel, Word
Yeah,
Perfect and Word.
yeah, 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 yeah.
But oh my goodness, I loved Lotus Notes. Oh my gosh.
Yes,
They're gonna
yes.
probably put me in the technology grannies. I don't even care. I'm like, put me there. Put me.
Yeah, a lot of people were beholden to Lotus Notes. Lotus Notes was a really cool, it was a really, really good software. It was just really good
Yeah.
software.
No,
Yeah,
it's
it
really,
really
really
was.
excellent.
It
Yeah.
really was. But it just didn't have like the brand appeal that Windows had, right?
Well, I
With
think
X.
the thing for Windows was that they brought it all together, right? In
Yes.
one package. And that was the thing that was just like sexy because you didn't have to think, oh, well, let me get this from WordPerfect, let me get this from Lotus Notes.
Yeah.
And then Outlook was insanity.
That
Outlook
was,
was the
yes,
best thing that Microsoft has ever produced. And
correct.
so that as a layer, bringing everything together was just like, well, how can you resist?
That was a game changer.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
That changed the game.
Everything,
Um,
everything.
so that opportunity, by the time I was done with these migration projects, I remember my contract came to an end.
Okay.
I was put on the bench. So bench time is when you have no project.
Ooh.
And I thought, okay, at this point now I'm married, I'm getting ready to have my first child. And I'm like, I'm benched and it's 2 weeks to my due date. I am freaking out. I'm like, what am I gonna do?
Have
Um,
the baby? I don't know. I
right,
think that's
have the
a big.
baby, have the baby. And I remember my relatives like, relax, just go have your baby, it'll be fine. But 6 months after I've had the baby, I get a call from, at this point now, Bell Atlantic has merged with GTE and it's now Verizon. And I get a call from one of my clients at Verizon saying, hey, Nick, I know that you're on maternity leave and I don't know what your situation is, but we have this project called FiOS and we're looking for a project manager to help us with a build. And I was wondering, are you still on maternity leave? Like, what are you thinking? Raquel, I called that lady back so fast. I'm like,
Jump.
yeah. And that, I would say that project really changed my career. It was great. It was intense work. It was work-life balance on
Oh,
steroids.
really? Oh, that's
Now
so
I'm a young
fantastic.
mother,
Yeah.
uh, right? I'm a new wife. My father passed away around that
Oh,
time.
no.
My father-in-law passed away around that time. So I
No.
was trying to learn all these things in life while trying to get to the top, while trying to also take care of my familial responsibilities. And so I remember saying, okay, this is going to work out somehow. And the project did. We delivered the project ahead of schedule, under budget. And at the end of that project, I was offered 3 positions, 3 promotional opportunities. Yes,
Wow.
either to get promoted in place, to take a job within Verizon advertising, or to go to Verizon's Washington office and do policy. And I remember saying, I'm going to take the policy route because I didn't know much about it. And I thought these other two, I could always do that. But
Yeah.
what is it that I might not be able to always do? And remember, it's Capitol Hill now,
Yeah.
DC.
Policy is huge. This is
Is my
all what
dream.
DC is about.
Right. And it's not like I studied policy, but I was willing to learn. And so that sent me to Verizon's Washington office. Um, and that's where I stayed for the rest of my career at Verizon and learned different things. I met so many wonderful people, including Susan Colantuono, who put us together.
Yes.
Um, she's amazing, but it was just an amazing experience. And so I keep thanking Tim Kanar, who was my account executive that said, stay with Stable, right? Like
Yes.
stay with Bell Atlantic because at the end of the day, look what happened.
Yeah. Where
AOL
is AOL right now?
was eventually purchased by Yahoo, which
Yeah.
eventually was purchased by Verizon, which was Bell Atlantic, right? So stability does win in the marketplace at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the lesson here is do good work hard, and you will then write your own ticket to the next place that you go, and be willing to take on new challenges, be willing to get excited about the stuff that you don't know versus just sort of leaning on, well, listen, of the 3 options, here, I know these two really well. Let me go for the one that I don't know because that's where I will learn and grow.
Yes. Go for
Um,
the one you don't know and don't be scared of the dogs, right? The
yeah,
stuff that's not sexy. Like
yeah.
when I thought about it, I remember at one point, people, you talk to your classmates and people are telling you, oh, I'm working at, Blue Orange or some
Mm.
high tech company. As a computer scientist, like that's the badge.
Yeah.
It's what startup are you working on? What are you?
Yeah.
And then you tell your peers, I'm working at Bell Atlantic. They're like, Bell Atlantic? What?
Oh my gosh, you're
They're like,
working for grandpa?
it's almost like saying you're working for like a gas company. They're like, what? What are you doing? But again, there is, don't despise small beginnings.
Yeah,
And, I thought about that a lot to say, sometimes you just have to humble yourself
yeah,
and bloom where you're planted. Yeah,
yeah. Oh, bloom where you're planted. All
yeah.
right. So then how did we get to Cox?
So Cox came for me.
Yeah, because once you
Yeah,
build that reputation and you build that brand, you no longer have to go knocking on doors. Doors start calling you.
yes. Cox
Yeah.
came knocking. I remember getting this LinkedIn message. LinkedIn is like my favorite app, owned by Microsoft. I love LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn off.
No
And I remember
comment.
I remember getting this message from the recruiter at LinkedIn saying about this opportunity at Cox and if I know someone. And I knew a couple of people, and I said, okay, what I typically do is say, let me talk to you first and then figure out who to direct you to. I remember talking to the recruiter, and I remember telling her, oh, she wanted to talk. I said, hey, I'd love to talk to you, but I'm going to be volunteering at Dress for Success on the day she was available. Will
Mhm.
that be okay? She's like, of course. So I said, huh, okay. So I call her from where I'm volunteering, and she's really interested in what I'm volunteering on. And I start telling her,
Nice.
and we had a great conversation. And she's like, oh, let me tell you about Cox. We're a family-owned business. These are our values. And I was really struck just
Mm,
by the wholesomeness, right?
mm,
That this recruiter was approaching me about a position. She
mm,
was talking to me like a person, not
mm.
just, it wasn't tell me what you've done, except it was
Yeah,
talk to me
bring the
about
whole
your
of you to
interests,
work.
bring your
Yeah,
whole self,
yeah.
right? I felt very relaxed and at ease. And so she said, would you be interested in a conversation? Because we think that you would be a fit for our government and public affairs position in Virginia. And I said, you know what? I would be open to having that conversation.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so I remember going through a series of interviews. Cox will put you through the gauntlet. Uh, Rightfully so. I remember going through a series of interviews, and I remember it's the STAR format, right? Like situation, task, action, result. And I remember at the end of the interview with the hiring manager, he talked about give where you live,
Mm,
and he talked at length about the importance of giving where you live and giving back to society. And Raquel, I hadn't at that point in my life really articulated what I was feeling. But as he was saying it, I knew this is what I wanted to do next. I already
yeah.
felt like I had come to a point where I had outgrown where I was.
Mhm.
And I love Verizon. I grew up at Verizon, right? So I said, but giving where you live and giving to community and being
Mm,
closer to customers, I'm like, yeah, I can wrap my arms around that. And so before the interview ended, I asked my boss, I said, okay, if you were a superhero, who would you be? And he burst out laughing. And he's like, no, I got to ask you, if you were a superhero, movie. And that's when I knew that this is a company that I could work for. Because I said to myself, if I'm going to leave a Verizon that is so dear to me, it's got to be for something more than a paycheck. It's
Yeah.
got to be because I want to make a serious impact.
Different. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But this thread of values seems to play all the way through your career and making decisions based on values. And I find a lot of millennials are doing that now. And I think that is such a good way to pick a place to work, because a lot of things may not line up exactly. But when you find you're in a situation where the values don't work, it is a struggle.
It is.
It is a struggle.
Mm-hmm.
And so you've got to know what are your values and be very, very clear on what those are. And then interrogate in the interview, what are the values? And look at how they treat you through different kinds of conversations. I love that. I don't love the fact that he hid from the question as to what superhero he would be, because he needed to answer that. And that now will be like, that has to be an interview question. Like, what superhero would you be? I feel like that is the best interview question that I've heard. And like, what would be your powers? I mean, like, I feel like it's so light and expansive, and causes people to sort of think boundlessly, right? And shows you who they are. So I love it. I love it. My favorite question ever. So tell me, before we wrap up, what's your favorite advice? What's the best advice you've ever received?
Ooh. I would say I'll give you two. On the personal front, I would say it's be you because everyone else is taken.
Love it. Love it. Oldie but
And
goodie.
right, like
Yeah.
it's goody but goody. And I think about that and I share that with my daughters. On the professional front, it's Susan. Don't forget the missing 33%. Speak to financial outcomes if you're a woman in business. And business
Mm.
includes nonprofit business.
Of course. How
Yeah.
does the money work?
Yes.
And sometimes, a lot of times I feel like, especially in the nonprofit space, but even in corporate, you see women in jobs and they are not clear about the financial flows of the business. And I'm like, how do you know that what you're doing is sustainable? How do you know that you're doing the right things? You've got to follow the money, and you've got to figure out, how does this make money? Because if it doesn't make, if it doesn't make dollars, it don't make sense. So you've got to figure
Yes.
that piece out. And
Yes.
even if you're doing development work, you need to think about, okay, how do we sustain this impact? How do we sustain this work? And all
Yes.
of it runs on money.
It
Even when
does.
you're dealing with volunteers, which we have to far too often in this space, you've got to think about the money. I mean, listen to me. I was such a fangirl for Susan when she talked about that missing 33%. And I was so lucky. And I said to her, I said, I was so lucky in my career in that I happened upon this accidentally. But I realized that is, in fact, the piece that's missing for so many of us, and keeping
Yes.
us from getting further and further into leadership positions where
Yeah.
we ought to be.
Yes. Yes. Till this day, I think once she shared that with me, she was my coach for a bit. I felt like a light bulb went off because I said, "Oh my gosh, you're so right." Up until that point, I'd go into meetings, Raquel, and I'd say, "Oh yeah, the team did great. They were wonderful. Morale was high. Yeah, we completed the project on time." Now I'm sure to say no, on time and under budget. I'm
Uh-huh.
gonna let you know down to the penny.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid of the numbers.
Yes.
And if you're not comfortable with the numbers, there's so many tools and so many ways. I'm just reading Hidden Potential. Such a great book. I recommend it.
Hidden,
Um,
hidden potential?
Hidden Potential, and it talks
Okay.
about the magical space where you feel uncomfortable, and how so many of us avoid that space of being uncomfortable.
Mhm.
But that's where the magic happens. And so if you think about, if your discomfort is with the financials and with the numbers, lean into it. Lean into that discomfort, because that means that you're learning. It means that you're expanding. It means that you are discovering something new. And that's what keeps your brain young. That's what keeps you, ahead of the curve. So get into new spaces, look at the values of the organizations, be open and willing and eager and enthusiastic about what you're doing. Be authentic and honest about what you're dealing with in your life, and be willing to share yourself so that
Yes.
you are able to make that match based
Mhm.
on who you really are.
Yes.
Phenomenal, phenomenal, phenomenal. I feel like
Awesome.
I've made a friend today.
Hey, look, when you come or I come, it's either where are you?
Listen, you come
Where are
on.
you?
You come on.
Where are
Trinidad.
you? Oh, awesome. Because I know that there are Nigerian restaurants in Trinidad.
Are
Yes.
there? No, I listen to me. I can't, there cannot be. Please. There cannot be. I can't do it. By the time when I was in Lagos, by the time I left, when I came down for breakfast, the staff there knew what I wanted to have for breakfast. They're like, pounded yam. And they were like, pounded yam. I was like, oh God, I could feel myself expanding during my
That's
time
the
there.
whole point. That's the
Oh
whole
gosh.
point.
No,
Wow.
no. Yeah.
This has been such a treat. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
no,
Thank
thank
you. Thank
you,
you.
thank you, thank you. So
This is
with that, I thank you all for staying with us through this conversation, and I hope you gained something. I think there were so many amazing gems in this conversation that you can learn from about, following what, skating to where the puck is going, and just being in touch with your values. There's so many good things here. I encourage you to you know uh, subscribe if you haven't already, but look after your career. We need you. Thank you so much and see you next time. Bye.
see ya. Bye.